The Services Requiring Attention report is a report on the completeness and timeliness of timetable data on BODs. In this video, we will be going through how to access this report and what it entails. This will include explanations for why your service may be showing up as requiring attention, as well as explaining the errors that affect timeliness. Once you are on the BOD's website, scroll down and select Find Bus Open Data. Scroll down and click View Operator Profiles and search for your operator's name. Once you have located your operator, you will find a high-level overview of your data on BODs. You can see whether your timetables data is compliant by navigating to the Timetables section. It will tell you the number of registered services that are in scope as well as the percentage of services requiring attention. You are aiming for 0%, which means that all of your data is compliant and your published data is not stale. To access the report, click on the Download Detailed Export link. This will download a single CSV file. Once you open up the file, you will see that it contains data fields from BODs as well as some OTC registration data. The default setting for the Requires Attention field is set to No. It will be set to Yes if it is a registered and in-scope service, the seasonal status is not out of season, and either there is no published dataset or there is a published dataset but it is not up to date. The Published Status field indicates whether a dataset has been published to BODs by an operator or agent. In scope is the default output for the scope status field for services registered with BODs. Out of scope is for those services that have been marked as exempt by DVSA. If a service has been marked as seasonal and today's date falls within the relevant date range, then it is included as an in-season service on the seasonal status field. Otherwise, it is recorded as not in season. The timeliness status field is set to up to date as default. If there are any issues with the timeliness of the data published, then there are a number of errors that will be returned. If the error is OTC variation not published, this means there is a change in the OTC registration that is not reflected in BODs. This can be rectified by publishing an updated timetable which reflects the change submitted to OTC. If the error is 42-day look ahead is incomplete, this means timetable data has not been provided for the next 42 days. If the error message is that the service hasn't been updated within a year, this indicates that timetable data hasn't been published for this service within the last year. This workflow explains the logic behind the different timeliness statuses and the errors associated with them. The default status for a service is up to date in BODs. BODs will first check if a service is in season, and if the service is not in season, then the status remains as up to date. If the service is in season, it will then check that it is an in-scope service and that the data has been published. If no data has been published, then you will get a timeliness status error of unpublished. If there has been some data published, it will then check to see whether the timetable published reflects any changes made to OTC data. Firstly, it will check whether the OTC effective date is in the next 42 days. If yes, this means there has been a recent change to your OTC data, and it will then check if the dates are for a terminated service. If it is not a terminated service, it will then check if the timetable data has been updated within the last 70 days. If it has not been updated, it will then check if the OTC effective date and the operating start date are the same, as this will indicate that a service's timetable data and OTC data match. If the dates are different, then this will result in a timeliness status of OTC variation is not published. The next step is to check whether a service has published timetable data to cover the upcoming 42 days. If not, it will check whether the service is terminating before the operating end date, i.e. does the service have timetable data published for the days that it will be operating. If the service is not terminating before the operating end date, but it is expiring in 42 days, and the timetable data published ends before the service expiry date, it will return a timeliness status of look ahead to expiry is incomplete. If the service is not terminating before the operating end date, but it is cancelling in 42 days, and the timetable data published ends before the service cancellation date, it will return a timeliness status of look ahead to cancellation is incomplete. If the service is not terminating before the operating end date and there is no timetable data for the next 42 days, then it returns a timeliness status of 42-day look ahead is incomplete. If there is published data for the next 42 days, it will then check to see if the published timetable data has been updated in the last year. If it has not, it will return the timeliness status. Service hasn't been updated within a year. Otherwise, the status remains up to date.